My name's Adie Mormech. I'm an activist with Manchester Palestine Action.
Okay.
I work with a lot of different Palestine groups, but I was in Gaza for 2 years. I was a teacher at the university, and I saw a hell of a lot. I was there during the bombing of 2012,
Okay.
and we were going to the borders where they were shooting at farmers and fishermen and school children going to school. This was for real. This was, this is an entire population under a permanent siege, an F-16s in the sky. That's their permanent life. This is a population that's mostly children. The same with the land borders, with the gunships running after the fishermen, and the same with the snipers and the turrets and the tanks shooting at the borders. So this is their life. They're surrounded. Most of them are kids. Most of them are refugees. They ask them where they're from. They come from another place that is now demolished. So it's for real. And when we came back to Manchester, we wanted to get more stuff happening that was more direct, and we do a lot of direct action.
So, since you've seen the violences firsthand in Palestine, why do you feel it's important to be here today?
It's important to be here because, frankly, some of the sharpest writing and action and history of serious resistance and serious attempts to get justice has been from anarchists writing, from anarchists. And I know I've been to anarchist book fairs before, that all these is that you get people that have really gone out and done stuff, and this is what we're trying to do. We want to be with doers and not talkers, and that's a real cliche, but it's kind of still very relevant because most people seem to be sometimes in the game just for career choice. Yeah, that's right, exactly. But so our whole attitude with Manchester Palestine Action is that we want to get stuff done, and we actually want to end all complicity with what Israel's doing in a direct way, going straight to the roots. And that might mean arms factories, that might mean banks that are investing, it might mean other kind of institutions, universities that are complicit in arms manufacturing and research. Okay. All that stuff we're going for. We're not just going for it with talks and events, which are important. But for me, amongst all kind of justice movements, social justice movements, or environmental justice movements, we're lacking direct stuff. We do need that. That is needed, and so therefore we've kind of trying to fill the gap with it.
I see. Would you consider yourself an anarchist?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing I've described myself as before, but I think I go along with the anarchist sentiment and attitude, and obviously for me that is anarchism is about a more purer form of everybody as involved as can be, and also with more self-determination and freedom. I try not to label myself too much with anything, to be honest with you. But yeah, if I was to be pushed on a political spectrum,
you appreciate where the anarchists are coming from.
Oh yeah, for sure. No. I mean, I would have I have that attitude, and I would prefer this form of the world and government. Yeah, this is it. And that is, I mean, I'm like a lot of people here. Probably one of my biggest inspiring people was Chomsky, and then there are others that I've read since then, and other people that have gone into different areas. So I think that applying the anarchist tools is what we're not doing enough of, and we're not taking them on enough.
So lack of direct action.
Direct action is not just something within anarchism, but at the same time, I can see where that sentiment comes from, because it goes straight to the root of illegitimate authority.
Yeah.
And so if you go straight for the root, you have to step over the line a lot more, and it's urgent. We're talking about arms factories for here. If everyone saw what I saw of those kids coming into the hospitals in Gaza, then they'd all be blocking these arms factories.
So can you detail the actions you've taken regarding those factories?
Yeah. We during the bombing of Gaza in 2014, I'd not long come back from Gaza, and this was the worst attack. This killed like 500 kids in 50 days, like 2,200 people, 10,000 injured, like 65 hospitals and clinics were bombed. There was 100,000 left homeless, more than that, left homeless. So, it was horrific. And there was this arms factory, and it was actually London Palestine Action that had sort of been, looking at this arms factory, in Israeli arms factory. There's 4 Israeli arms factories, Israeli-owned arms factories. Elbit is the main chief company.
What do you know? What do they supply exactly to the Israeli
Well,
army?
they supply all kinds of things actually, but this particular factory in Staffordshire called UAV Engines,
Okay.
unmanned aerial vehicle engines, is making engines for drones.
For drones, okay.
And so we decided that we couldn't wait long enough. Now they're bombing Gaza; it's hell on earth, and we just went straight and went and organised quickly and went straight to the roof, and we occupied it for 3 days. And we did get, of course, with direct action, we did get a hell of a lot of media coverage, and we did put a lot of light on it. And we had a huge banner saying "Stop Arming Israel" for 3 days across the top of the factory. So we were on the roof for 3 days, So the police finally came us and took us. But interestingly, they dropped the case against us because Elbit would not provide the Crown Prosecution Service with enough details of what the weapons were being supplied.
Okay.
But just to talk about why did we go on the factory, well, this is the connect. I lost one of my students. One bomb killed her. She was a lovely woman. She was very funny, quirky. Used to come early in class to talk about stuff. And I was on Facebook with her, talking to her about during the bombing. It was all horrible. And then she'd been 3 years later by then, so she'd had two little kids. Her two little kids, her mother-in-law and her father were all killed by a bomb from a drone while I was on the roof.
I see.
So that's very possible that engine was made in that factory because it's Hermes 450 drone. So this is, Elbit is constructing these. They're making money off it because they have a captive population. And it's a laboratory. The manufacturers of Elbit, this company that owns this factory in Staffordshire, they've talked about how to test them.
Is the factory still running at the moment?
They're all still running, all four of them. We've been back many times. We've closed it on four different occasions, and we've just gone back recently. It was the anniversary of the bombing of Gaza, 2017 July, and we went down with a mass mobilisation. And when they shut it, then the next morning we went back, and 5 of us were arrested, and we just basically blocked the front with chains and stuff like that. And basically, we were obviously locked on as well. And we've just had the news that they've dropped all the charges. They dropped 3 first, and now they dropped the 2 others. So we all got off because they don't want to reveal what they're doing. The Elbit manager does not want to go on the stand.
So do you think your action helps shed some light on what's going on also inside the factory?
Yeah, I think it does, because we're building pressure. And to be honest with you, some people were disappointed that they didn't go to trial, because actually we wanted the Elbit manager on the stand.
To make a stand?
Yeah, not just to make a stand, but to find out information. They're not giving information about the deals that they're doing to sell these drones. So the biggest drone producer in the world, on the basis that they've got this population that they can target it on. Yeah. So with the arms, Britain is the second largest exporter of arms in the world. This tiny island, all the weapons in the world, and Britain is the second largest exporter. I mean, we are in one serious horror of a place, especially for people that have been under the bombs, and I have, and it is the biggest instinct for me about what's being made in these factories here in England and Saudi, bombing Yemen, everywhere else, is that it's like, what are humans making this stuff for? The bombs are absolutely enormous. And if you're telling me a population in Gaza, Palestinians that are mostly kids, it's absolutely beyond belief that the human race has ever created such completely mad killing machines, basically. And so hitting arms factories is a no-brainer. I strongly recommend it. It's very satisfying when you close it down. And I would hope everybody else perhaps join, one of the Palestine action groups in Manchester, Birmingham, London, or campaign against the arms trade. And other groups are doing direct action as well on Saudi and many other countries that are bombing and causing horrific damage. Because of course with the Palestinians, it's a 70-year military occupation. This has been under the boot of the Israeli army for decades. So therefore, it's not just about the bombings; it's the daily life. But there is connect all over in England, and I think that if you're talking about going to the root cause, go to the arms trade, go to the banks that are investing, go to the institutions like University of Manchester that are well collaborating with Israeli organisations that are connected to the arms industry and Elbit. So you know what I mean? I think this is the point about what I always appreciate by anarchism, is that you go to the root of the illegitimate authority and the illegitimacy, and you don't mess around. And actually, usually in this kind of world especially, it's even more applicable, because we're kind of like, we know what's going on, but no one does anything. So when someone does something, it actually has an impact. It has a bigger impact. People break through the membrane of sort of like dumbing down and like zombifying everybody. So I think that it's more important than ever. Of course, it needs all the other work as well. It needs the write-ups, it needs the writing, it needs the talks and everything else. But without pushing harder, we are behind at the minute. We have let these arms factories run amok. We've let these banks go crazy and all of the horrible investments in the environment. We are behind.
So without direct action, the talks will only do so much.
For sure. I mean, it will push things a lot harder because at the minute things don't, and also it gives you such a bit of lift to know that actually we can have an impact, and we really can, you know.
Are you involved in the BDS movement?
Yes, we are. The boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Yeah, sure. Of course, it's stop arming Israel is part of that. Yeah.
Do you think that the support for the Palestinian cause, you that have been involved now for many years, do you think it's growing among the British population?
Well, yeah, percentage-wise for sure, and it's the feeling of us on the streets as well. Completely. Yeah, people are starting to wake up a bit. It's a lot. It's a combination of things, but when you got like people like Roger Waters of Pink Floyd and you know, Alice Walker and a lot of real sort of legends of anti-racism, Mandela Tutu and lots of people like that calling for boycott, people start to think actually something must be up.
That has an impact.
It has a massive impact because at least they start to look into it more. You know, even Stephen Hawking and people of real credibility, especially people who themselves have fought against racism, and you know, it's you know, it's a no-brainer really to make that connect. And it's of course the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, comes off the back of the fact that governments are actually supporting Israel. Israel gets more aid than any other country in the world. It gets billions. They get treated with kid gloves. The BDS is actually a pinprick really in terms of actual holding them to account.
What would you say the feedback has been so far here at the Anarchist book fair?
It's been really positive. I mean, especially once we tell them what we're doing. When they hear that we're blocking arms factories, it's like, yeah, damn straight. And they're all, like, here, for example, you know, people as well are very sympathetic, of course.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their different passions, and I don't put Palestine ahead of other issues necessarily.
Of course.
But it's the one that I got involved in. I was doing a lot more work on anti-capitalism environment stuff before. And then I went to Palestine and just thought this is disgusting. And there were a lovely bunch of people that have been, just because of who they're born as, they get denied every single freedom you can imagine. So that's decades. So basically, I went with this, and people respect it, and people respect it because they know that it's a nonsense.
So, without negating the specificity of the Palestinian and Israeli conflict, would you say that it's part of a wider struggle, a wider scheme of things maybe that we ought to concentrate on at the moment?
I think it's one of many things in the wider struggle. I do. I think that the struggle is, I mean, there's a lot of incredible amount of racism that goes into demonizing the Palestinian people. It's an outrage. It's just disgusting, especially for people that have been there and just met lots of amazing people. And it's also the connect with the US hegemony. US is basically guaranteeing whatever it wants. It's been bankrolling them, like, you know, it's currently on like $3.8 billion of aid each year.
And it's not going to change anytime soon.
No, absolutely. So, and of course, Israel is allied right now, it's overtly with Saudi and Egypt and all of the counter-revolutionary groups in the Middle East right now. So they are really helping to impose a Western hegemony on the Middle East. And of course, with that, they were the biggest, you know, cheerleaders for the Iraq War.
Yeah.
In the West, they support America on every single horrific thing they do internationally, and in fact, encourage them to bomb Iran.
Their military venture, they're always
totally. Yeah. So, you know, they are like America's aircraft carrier in the Middle East, and that's partly why they work in tandem, and Britain the same, sadly. It's setting the Middle East ablaze. That whole movement is setting the Middle East ablaze, and it will come back here to these shores, and people won't understand. And we'll have a third world war if people don't get some of the injustices in Palestine, and what's happening in Yemen, what's been happening in Iraq, and what's happened in Afghanistan and everywhere else, in Lebanon. You know, they were going to invade Lebanon. I mean, this whole thing is going completely crazy, and all people know about Beirut is that there's trouble there. Well, guess what? It's Western-inspired trouble. Just check out the history for a single second. We've got a most horrific impact on the Middle East, and it's finally coming back down to here. So suddenly people are saying, "Oh, it's the world's going terrible now." Well, the world was terrible over there for decades. Suddenly it's happening here, so it's going terrible.
So
What
it's
about
now
them?
sipping
Absolutely.
here. So all the more reasons to get involved here and now.
Absolutely. More, it's massively urgent. We have been massively behind. Democracy of any kind is slipping away. Any control of anything is slipping away. When I talk about democracy, I mean real democracy. I mean like people having control over their lives.
Yeah.
That's slipping away right now. The internet is gradually being controlled, and we're not going to have the same opportunities to hit back. And so we do it urgently. And look, if I do actions where I'm getting arrested, it's the last problem. Absolutely no problem at all. It was actually fine. It was a tiny thing compared to what, say, a Palestinian would have to go to if he ever had to stand in front of a weapons factory.
I see. So will you be here at the book fair next year too?
For sure.
That's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Thanks.